Yeah, so hi guys, my name is Devesh Mishra and I run a small indie company named Betide Studio where we work on a lot of open source tools and plugins which are available for a wide variety of resources like Steam, EOS, PlayFab, EdgeGap and a lot of different multiplayer services that are available in the market. So these plugins are basically easy to use interfaces that you can use in your project and get started within no time. And we would be live demoing EOS today itself. So because we have less time, so let's directly get started. So for EOS is just an Epic online services made by Epic. So it provides you cross-platform tools to integrate in your project pretty easily. So it has achievements, stats, and multiplayer even for platforms which Epic does not directly deliver to, like PS5, Nintendo. So you can even make a cross-platform game for those platforms using EOS. So for EOS, we have two different choices. One of it is Epic Account Services, and the second one is Epic Game Services. So with Epic Account Services, the thing is, if you want to have Epic login in your game, so if you want to use the wide variety of features that Epic has, like Epic Friends, Epic Presence, Overlay, things like that, then you can go with the Epic Account Services, or else there's an Epic Game Services, which is game-specific services. Which means if you want to have your own authentication method, for instance, you are releasing a game on Steam and would be using a Steam Friends and a Steam Overlay. In that case, you would be going with Epic Game Services, where you can just have the Steam login and the multiplayer and launch it on both the Epic Game Store and Steam without any extra work. So why EIK comes in, the EOS provides a easy to use C++ SDK, and even if in Unreal Engine it's integrated directly in the engine. But the thing is that it is not exposed to blueprints and it's not that wide. For EIK, it provides everything that EOS itself has. The SDK is completely covered by the plugin. It has 100% SDK coverage. So for instance, example, EOS has a lot of easy to use functions for beginners, which we would be using today. So you can just get the game directly running on Steam without any hard work. But in case you want something advanced, you want to use some SDK functions, you can do directly from the blueprints without going to C++. But in case you want to do that in C++, then we also have full C++ support. So any function that is callable in Blueprint is also supported in easy to call functions on the C++ interfaces. So now, as I said, we have two available choices. One is Epic Account Services and Epic Game Services. So with the auth interface, you can use the Epic Account Services, where you can use the Epic account to log in, have the overlay, friends, and stuff like that. And with the Connect interface, you would be using authentication methods like Steam, device ID, that is anonymous login, and iOS, Apple, Google, and other platforms like that. So we would not be covering everything, as you know. Everything is explained in highly detailed manner. Even the C++ code is given on the documentation website. So you can go to eik.betide.studio and you can look at the documentation. The plugin is open source, so you can even go through the source in case you want to learn something or things like that. So basically, IK is pretty easy to set up. The only thing that you need to do is create your organization on the website and link the plugin to the your account. So for that, you can just directly go to your settings, and you will see there are a few different. Of course, there are a lot of settings, but the only thing that matters in the start is the artifact settings. So these artifacts are basically specific to each account. So in case you have multiple game releasing on multiple platforms, then you will have multiple artifacts, and that's why you have an array for it. You can even define default artifacts for platforms. So if you have the same rules and regulations on all the platforms, you would be using the default that we would be doing. So we can directly go on the dev portal where we would be creating. So you have an Epic dev portal shortcut key here. It's taking a bit of time. But yes, select your organization. Organization is per studio. So normally you can create a new organization in case you want to create a new one. But normally I will be using already existing organization. It's just a name that you can directly put. So it does not have any organization-wise settings, except the number of users that you want to add in your organization. And we would be, as you know, you can see we did 4 tests before this, so we have IGDC test 4. So we will be creating a new product, which would be ideally your game name. But for me, it would be IGDC test 5. That is the 5th test. Now it will take a few minutes to generate all the auth credentials for you. It will be giving you all the properties that you need to enter here in the project settings. So you need things like client ID, client secret, product ID, sandbox ID, deployment ID. So here your artifact can also be connected to an Epic account, which in case you are launching with the Epic account services, you are going for the launch on Epic Game Store, then you would also be needing, you also need to connect it to your Epic application, which we will be doing here. So the project is created. You can just directly go to the settings. And you have all the settings set up for you except the clients. So the clients is basically you control the settings that you want to give to your user. Like you only want the user to only create a lobby but not update a stat. So for that, clients are used. And for application, in case you want to allow the user to log in, you will specify how many permissions you want to pass there. So I would be using the default client policy. Basically, there are 4 different policies. One is peer-to-peer, trusted server, game client. In case of peer-to-peer, it's just like listen server. Basically, a player is a host, and all the other clients join it. So it depends upon the latency and things like that. So we would be choosing the peer-to-peer privacy, but I'm sure if you use more EOS features, you will have to switch to a custom policy, because peer-to-peer is highly logged, so you won't be able to do most of the things that you would want. But for multiplayer things, peer-to-peer is the perfect one that we would be going for. So client policy and add. And now for this client policy, we also need to generate a client ID that we can connect our engine to. So add a new client and client 1. And select the policy that you want to generate the policy for. So generate the ID for. Now there is a trusted server configuration here. So in case you only have a few specific dedicated servers where your players can connect to, you can pass the IP address for that IP address and port, of course, for those servers. So Epic will check if the request is coming from a specific IP and then only allow it, or else will deny the request. Now we have a client ID and client secret generated. So in case you are not going to use Epic account to log in, then you can skip the application section. But because we require the user to log in through an Epic account connected, so we have to set it up. So in an application, the only 3 possibilities that you can take a permission for as of now is for online presence, friends, and country. Both of 3 would be disabled by default, and in most cases, you won't need to turn them on until, for instance, you want to have friends overlay turned on in a Steam game. Then you need to enable it and use that one. For now, I will be leaving that turned off because I would be testing on an iOS and Mac multiplayer, so I don't need any of these. So you need to link the client that you want to allow this policy to be used for, which would be the default. And that should give you application ID also here. Now the last thing is for sandbox and deployment, you see 3 different stages. One is the dev stage, then the stage, and the live. So these 3 things are basically, in case you're testing a game, you cannot do that on the live environment. You need to do that on the dev. But if your game is in development, the live one would be the one that you would be using. Things like device ID, that is anonymous login, does not work on dev and stage, and you only need to use the live one, because players only, you cannot differentiate a player between the dev and live on an anonymous login method. So it makes sense. So you can only use login methods like account portal, where you can add the players to the organization and then use it. So let's now add these to our project. Client ID, client secret, product ID. Sandbox, we would be using the live one. And live deployment. Because all the artifacts, because we won't be having two different artifacts for iOS and Mac, so we would be using the default one. But as you see, we have platform specific for Android and iOS in case you want to specify different versions for Android and iOS. But basically, in most of the cases, you won't be having different policies for different versions. So you can use the default for all. Except the voice. So we have a token-based voice system and a lobby voice. So in case you are having a dedicated server-based voice chat, so EIK is the only plugin that has positional voice chat support for iOS. So in case you are going with the token-based method, then you would be needing multiple artifacts because the server has to create the token, which is not possible to be done by the client. So when that is done, you can just turn on automatically set up EIK option, which will add all the required configuration in your project. For instance, making EIK the default, turning on the net drivers and stuff like that. And now in the output log, you can see we got some EOS SDK messages, but you can also verify if EIK is active or not by searching for created online subsystem. So in most cases, if you have the setup wrong, you will get an error here, and it would be saying created online subsystem instance for null. But in this case, it's EIK, so that means the setup was successful. So now let's add the login node. Just to add, in case you are testing an editor and you just want to do basic testing, basic multiplayer in the editor without, like we would be doing it on iOS, but if you just want to do it on a standalone, you can use a dev tool which can be launched directly from here, launch dev tool and add all your Epic accounts on a different port. So you can add different accounts. So you can see I have 2 of my accounts added, and the editor will directly log it in for you without doing anything. You also need to turn on the auto login thing in case you want to use this, which is available in auto login. We have 2 types of thing. That one is auto login type, and then is the fallback. If the auto login fails for some reason, for instance, you have selected Steam here, Steam login, and in case the Steam login fails, you can have a fallback to device ID or account portal. So in case the Steam fails, you can do a fallback by device ID. For now, I will be setting it none because we will not be testing it in editor but deploying it on a real machine. And I have an empty map named main menu added here. So let's open the level blueprint. I did not have the time to create widgets. So the login is pretty easy. The 2 nodes that I showed you are login with auth interface, and the second is login with connect interface. So because we will not be using the Epic account to login, we will be using an anonymous, because most of the mobile games have a method to log in with the guest account. You can do the login using connect interface and pass a display name here. Display name as of now is not used by EOS, but in upcoming versions of the SDK, they plan to use it for leaderboard and achievements. As of now, if you create a leaderboard or achievement entry with a device ID account, you will be getting an unknown user back. Although you will be getting an entry, but the user entry would be named as unknown user. But in upcoming versions, the display name that you see here will be used. So just something. And when the login success is done, we will just give a minor delay to just check the logs and then start the multiplayer session. You will be getting the device ID. So device ID printed in the log, so we don't need to directly print it. And it won't be a failure because EIK is set up, so won't be printing that too. Or even if you don't print it, you will get the error or anything that you have in the logs. So when that happens, we need to find a session. So if you have used any Unreal specific nodes, EIK also performs the find similarly to that. It has some extra settings that you can use, like, so we have find EIK sessions, and then we have find EIK session by ID. So for instance, you have a friend that you know is in a specific session. You can search for his session specifically by an ID. Now you also see 4 different functions on the top under SDK functions. So in case you do not want to use EIK's game ready functions, you can do the SDK called yourself, although it's a pretty heavy job because you need to do the handling and the local user. And you also need to manage the memory yourself because these are meant to be for advanced use cases. So for now, we will just be directly creating, finding a session. Now, all the properties are the basic ones. You can just leave them empty, but the session settings are the important ones. For instance, your player is in a specific map. You can find that map and pass it in the session settings. It supports Boolean, string, and integers. So you can use any of that. So basically, we only know we are going to have only one session, so we will just be skipping that. But we will be passing one on the create session, so we can check that on the dev portal. And if the first index is valid, I will join it. Now, success will also fire even if it does not find any session, because success here means it does get a callback from EOS SDK, which means, hey, we did the search successfully, but we did not find any sessions. So you need to check specifically if there is a valid session that you want to join. And then the join is pretty easy. You just get search for join EIK session. You do not join using the normal functions, although the search elements have normal session entries, but you cannot join using that because the join EIK function is made for dedicated servers and listen servers both. So it manages the port and things like that that you normally would have to do yourself without EIK. Just a game session name. So this game session name is a local property. You can use this to destroy sessions, to maybe update it later, or if you want to do anything like that. So this game session name that I pass here is just a local property and is not passed back to the server. And then if we do not find a session, we will just create an EIK lobby. Again, you can see we have create session, modification, search, and things like that. The lobby functions are named EOS underscore lobby and continuation that. So if you want to use the SDK function, it would be an EOS underscore lobbies underscore something. But for the easy functions, it's not under any category. You can just search for create EIK and you will find that. So create EIK lobby. We will be using the same session name because again, it's a local property and the number of public connections would be 5. And we can pass a session property. Here I will just pass a map name. So you can pass multiple type of attributes. These are the 3 ones that are supported by the EOS SDK. So I will just pass it hall 5, and that is it. So EIK also supports host migration. This is pretty basic host migration. The game session is not retrieved, but if a new host is set, it will take them back to the same level that they were playing on at the same point. And you can even override a lot of properties like the join by ID that I showed, find by ID that I showed before. You can pass a manual ID here, or you will also get the ID here in case you want to do something like that. Now to initialize the session, just open a level, and in the options, pass the listen argument. So this will initialize the net drivers and create a listen server for you. Third person map. And that is it. So this is the complete code for finding and joining the session. Now this is pretty basic in terms of Basically, this will help you completely get off the ground, but in some cases you will have multiple maps, multiple rank modes and things like that. So for that you can use the session settings and even pass the same type of arguments that we passed here. Now we can directly deploy it on the phone and it should work well. Will take a minute to get up and running. Till then, I can show you something more. So under game services, if you go, you will see a lot of game progression settings like stats, achievements, leaderboards, player data storage, and things like that. Creating a stat is pretty straightforward, and even setting and retrieving that is pretty straightforward in EIK. Just to give you a minor notice, if you see the deployment is set to dev here, if you create a sandbox stat on dev and try to find it from the live one, it will not work. So you will have to create it on the dev one and find it from the dev one, or create it on the live one and find it from the live one. You cannot exchange it and you cannot push it later. So create a stat, EOS stat, and the aggregation type would be sum. Achievements do not support latest. It's only supporting, as of now, sum, min, and max. So if later on, like if you update a stat, and that's the minimum value that you want to store, it will always update that. So for instance, if you want to store the minimum amount of time taken for the race to complete and things like that. And max is, as you can read, it's just the max amount of information that you want. So sum. Okay, it's almost done. And same way, you can just go on and create a leaderboard which is connected to that stat that we just created. EOS leaderboard, and connect it to the EOS stat that we just created, and this will be a never expiring leaderboard. And create. Okay, so the launch is completed. I will launch the app on phone. You can check the logs live under the device output log if the device is connected. So as you can see, it created a session and is on the third-person map. I'm sure it's pretty small, so you won't be able to see it. But now you should be able to launch and directly join the session that we created on mobile. Yep. So let me screen share and just show that. So you can see both of them are connected, and it's running in multiplayer, and everything that you see is replicated, and it's not connected via same Wi-Fi or LAN. So it's running through EOS, and just to verify that, we can even go on the dev portal, and under lobbies, you can either find by the lobby ID that you get on the find, or join, or even create, or you can go and search by the player ID. But in this case, we don't know both of the things, so we can go on and search it by attributes, and here pass the map name. This would be a string, and if you know the map name exactly, you can pass in the exact value for the map name, but in this case, we would be selecting not equal, so we can get all the sessions, and just a random value to be passed here. So you can see we found the lobby, and so it's running on multiplayer, and we have 2 people, and the open public players is 3, so 5 people can join that we passed originally, and it has the data that you passed manually, that is map name, that was hall 5 here. So it has the owning user ID and things that you can use to find who the creator of this lobby is, and even punish him if he cheats. So you can use those things under operations, anti-cheat, sanctions, and player reports. Then the next thing is, as we created a stat just now, it's pretty easy to update that too. here after the delay, I will just unplug it. And pass set stat. Again, this is a game easy function, so it's pretty easy to run and get a response. If you want to run the specific ones provided by the SDK itself, that is the EOS SDK, it's again under the EOS underscore statistics under stats. So there are 7 functions for statistics that when you call them together will form the set EIK statistics. So it's doing a lot of work under the hood. So let's just get the stat value, which was named EOS stat, and pass a value here. So in the logs, even though we did not print, you can see we got a login using Connect interface. Login was successful. So now if we switch back and go to leaderboards, because you cannot directly see the value for the stats, you need to go to the leaderboards and then see the details for that. You can see the value that we passed is updated here, so that's working well. And the same way achievement works, although if you're not using the U overlay, you need to manually pass it. So in case you're not using the overlay, you need to manually get the achievements and show the player that they have achieved it or passed the value for that. If you're using the overlay manages all the hard work for you. Even for friends, the only thing that you need to bind is the join. Other than that, everything is handled for you. So that is it for the live demo. Can you switch it back? So so 5.5 released last night. These were written considering it would release later. But online services support became much better in 5.5. Unreal's online subsystem is soon going to be obsolete and Unreal services would take over. It's as of now feature ready, but it's still in beta. So assuming by 5.6 it will be ready, EIK and all the other subsystem plugins that we have, EIK, SIK, Edge Gap, Steam plugins and things like that would get online services support by the end of this month. We are also almost done with the console support for all the different plugins that we have, except Nintendo, hopefully coming soon. And we also have a Steam kit for crossplay in case you want to use Steam overlay used by EOS sessions. Although it works pretty well now itself, but it will have much better and easy integration later. So for EOS also, lot of features were announced this Unreal Fest, some of which were inventory system. As of now, Steam has an inventory system, but Epic does not. And even the store would become more than, it won't be defined to Epic Games Store. You can use the store functions even on the Steam and different platforms in upcoming updates. And user profiles would be coming pretty soon. And because Epic App Store released a few months back, so the SDK will also get the support for supporting mobile games for Epic Friends. As of now, you don't have an overlay, so you cannot have the friends. But it would be hopefully coming in 1.17 update of the US SDK. So the plugin is, as I said, is open source, so you can directly go and get it from GitHub. But because we cannot redistribute the EOS SDK, so you have to build it manually. And by manually, I mean you just need to add the plugin, add the SDK that you can download from the website, and just build it like you build normal projects. And if you use, so basically we have all the plugins on Fab. That's how our revenue comes in. If you purchase it from there, you get priority support, and coming soon console access will be provided there too. We also have a pretty huge community on Discord. If you search for Betide Studio Discord, you will get that. So we have free support for any kind of online issues that you get, online services related issues or online subsystem related issues. So, or anything that you need the plugin for. So the community is pretty good. So even if you don't buy the plugin and just use the GitHub one, for most cases, that would be good to go. So that is it from my side. If you have any questions, I would be out, so you can ask me there because we have a presentation just next lined up. So yeah, thanks a lot.